By 18, Peter O Toole had decided journalism was not for him, a view shared by his editor. Obsessed by theatre, O Toole had joined a local drama group with the intention of becoming an actor, only for this ambition to be curtailed in 1950 by national service. Undecided about which of the armed forces to enter, he finally opted for the Navy, gamely bullshitting that he came from a long line of Irish salty sea dogs. I preferred the sea, and I vomited over every square inch of it. O'Toole arrived at Victory Barracks, Portsmouth, with a ragtag assortment of other recruits, and after a visit to the Demon Barber and collecting ill-fitting uniforms, next on the agenda was an intelligence test. It was here we realized that we had amongst our group either a total nutcase or a man of genius, one of his naval comrades later recalled. O'Toole was given a series of wooden pegs, some round and some square. The idea was to fit the round pegs in the round holes. For O'Toole, that was too easy. In front of the RN shrink and keeping a straight face, he spent about half an hour trying to force the square pegs into the round holes. Other officers were called to witness this feat, and when they had given up in despair and called off the test, a huge grin appeared on O'Toole's face. Next was a series of questions to ascertain whether or not the recruit was officer material. O'Toole answered only one of the 20 questions. How would he lift a heavy barrel over a 30-foot wall using only two 10-foot lengths of rope? O'Toole replied simply, I would call the chief petty officer and say to him, get that barrel over the wall. After all that, O'Toole became a signals operator in the submarine service. Can you think of anything more unsuitable than that? I get claustrophobic in a lift and was ordered to the North Atlantic. It didn't take long for him to rebel, explaining to the ship's doctor that he had a hereditary ingrowing toenail, and as such, he could be injured for life if he had to wear regulation boots. O'Toole became the only member of the ship's company to be allowed to go ashore in anything other than boots. At a later stage, he acquired an imaginary curvature of the spine and was allowed to sleep in a camp bed rather than the conventional hammock. He was also arrested for taking extra rations of rum because it was a cold day, and again later for insubordination. It did look as if the Navy and O'Toole was an ill-matched pair. I would stand alone on deck at night talking to seagulls for hours. It was all really part of O'Toole's grand scheme to get out of the services as quickly as he would got in. What was I doing? Marching to the left and marching to the right? What was I doing darning socks? It was a bloody nightmare, and I tried everything to get out. One attempt consisted of drinking 18 bottles of wine, taking a lot of aspirins and a drug that was supposed to turn his features a deathly grey. But it didn't work. Given the task of decoding weather forecasts sent in a code by a rain ashore, O'Toole, plainly going against the spirit of the test, avoided the hour and a half it took to decipher the message by simply telephoning the woman and getting her to read it out in English. But somebody ratted on the girl and she was booted out while O'Toole got thrown in the brig. Even worse was the occasion his ship visited Sweden. A big ceremony was planned for the British Admiralty to walk ashore by jetty to greet the Swedish king, but when a fog descended, the fleet got lost and couldn't find the correct place to dock. O'Toole was hurriedly sent out in a boat with a walkie-talkie to tip off the admiral where the king could be found. Alas, O'Toole accidentally dropped the radio into the sea. He was jailed once again. While in Sweden, O'Toole did manage to find an unorthodox cure for the stammer and lisp that had been plaguing him since childhood. Playing in a Navy rugby team against one made up of thugs from the Swedish police force, O'Toole caught the ball and fell on it only for a hulking great Swede to kick him full on the chin, slicing his tongue in half. He was rushed to the hospital and the tongue was stitched back together, resulting in his speech impediment disappearing completely. The hospital discharged him when it was time for his ship to set sail and put him on a train. He had been riding for half an hour when he found out he was going the wrong way. There was O'Toole, unable to speak English, let alone Swedish. But luckily the nurse with him managed to find the way to the harbour just in time to see the fleet sailing off into the distance. O'Toole later swore he hired a funfair boat and paddled out until it came alongside the supply ship and they threw a rope ladder down to him. By hook or by crook, O'Toole continued to try and get out of the Navy. I started pointing out to the ridiculousness of the whole situation to them. I can't really say how much of what I was doing was pretending or when my pretense became real, but I was released as mentally unsuitable after 18 months. He would later describe his time there as a total waste for everybody, particularly His Majesty. As a grand gesture and to purge the Navy out of his system before resuming civilian life, O'Toole took his uniform and threw it in the Thames. Now it was back to Leeds and he hoped a career on the stage.